To introduce myself, my name is Vitas Resosa, and I am a senior hosting product specialist with Reseller Club. I have been with the company since 2016, and I have spoken to customers all this time and have insights into issues that usually customers face with server management. And thus, I've put together this presentation to address your concerns. So, this is the agenda. Okay, so this is the agenda for today's presentation. We will be going through options such as server selection, control panel, server hardening, MySQL and Apache configuration, optimization, setting up backups, and the services that need to be monitored. I've also compiled all useful information about all the topics that we will be covering in this webinar in a handout for you. You can download the handout from your panel. Now, let's start off with a poll. So, how do you currently manage your server? You can go ahead and select the option which is most applicable to you. Just go ahead, select whatever you feel like, and we'll be displaying the poll results within a few seconds. Okay, so these are the poll results. I am actually surprised that a huge number of you consider managing the server by yourself, in which case this webinar will surely prove to be very helpful to you. So let's go ahead and start with our first topic. Our first topic that we will be discussing is server selection. So why is server selection important and why am I addressing this? So let me give you a real life example about why server selection is important. Let's say that I am a web developer and I've hosted my client's website on a shared hosting server. However, one day I noticed that the website is showing timeout errors. And now I'm confused. Why is it showing timeout errors? There has to be something wrong with the server. So I get ahead and call the support team. After speaking with the support team indicates that I am exceeding the resource limits on shared hosting, due to which I'm facing timeout errors on my websites. So now I'm confused. I never knew that there were certain resource limits in shared hosting. So I go ahead and ask, like, what is the solution? What should I do? Support team indicates that I need to upgrade to a VPS server next. So okay, I was like, okay, what is the benefits of going to a VPS? So support team says you get full control over the server resources and you can do whatever you want on a VPS server. So I'm like, okay, sounds good. Let's go ahead. So I move my website to a VPS. However, after moving it, I still continue seeing the timeout errors. And now I'm totally confused. Like you asked me to upgrade, I have upgraded my server. So how come I am still seeing an error with my website? So that is why this topic is important. I'll just broadly divide the types of hosting which is available into three levels. Level one will be shared hosting, wherein all the resources are shared. The pros of using a shared hosting is you don't have to worry about server maintenance, and at the same time, the cost is very, very, very low. Level two is virtualized containers, which includes VPS, dedicated, and cloud servers. So, as I mentioned previously, when you move a website from a shared hosting to a VPS server, you will likely continue to face the same problems that you did in shared hosting. The reason for that is because VPS servers have to be manually optimized for your application. If you do not optimize the server settings, like you do not tweak the server configuration, what will happen is your website will use only up to 5 to 10% of the server resources, while the remaining 90% of the server resources remain idle, which is why we have marked virtualized containers as very high maintenance. You do require a experienced technician who has experience with a command line to manage your server. Level 3 will be managed services, wherein the server is managed by your hosting provider. As it is fully managed, you have to pay a lot actually. Managed servers are the costliest that you can purchase. However, everything starting from server security, server optimization, server updates, everything is handled by the hosting provider. Now let's discuss the second topic, which is control panels. So, why are we talking about control panels? It is because I'll just sum it up in one line. Control panels make it easy for us to set up our applications and manage the server. Another example is when you get a control panel, you usually get certain tools like reseller management tools, and it makes it really easy to add new domains, remove domains, create email accounts, create FTP accounts, upload databases, manage databases. So everything is much more easier using a graphical user interface. These are some of the popular control panels. The most popular ones are cPanel and Plesk. The primary reason why cPanel and Plesk is preferred, and even I recommend people to use them, is because they have a very, very, very widespread adoption rate. So if in case you're facing any kind of problems with, let's say, some error on cPanel or Plesk, it is very likely that you will find a documented solution for your problem. If you don't find a documented solution, their support is always available. You can reach out to them and they usually get back to you within like 1 or 2 hours, if we get in touch with them during their work hours, that is. So their support is also very good. The other free or open source alternatives that we have, they can be used when we are hosting applications on a limited scale. The reason for that is usually there are many bugs for which you will not find any documentation at all. You will need to go ahead and check their forums, ask questions on their forums, and somehow try to get a hold of their support team. So if you're running a production grade application, it is recommended to use either cPanel or Plesk, or else if it is a very large scale application, you might also consider just not using a control panel and configuring the entire server by yourself manually, with respect to your application. Next up, we have another poll, which is what are the steps that you take while setting up your server? So this is a multiple choice poll. So you can go ahead and select whatever options that are applicable to you. Like, do you harden your OS, install a LAMP setup, or like select whatever is applicable to you. And we'll just wait for 10 to 20 seconds more for everyone to submit their responses. Like almost 80% of you considered setting SSL important. Yes, it is now important. Setting up backup, 75% of you voted for that. Yes, backups are important. I agree with that completely. And only 47% said hardening the OS. We'll get to that. Actually, that's also an important parameter, and monitoring LAMP setup. Okay, let's move on with the next slide. Okay, now we will be talking about server hardening. So what is server hardening? In one line, if I have to sum it up, server hardening is a process wherein we make the server more resilient to external threats. So there are a lot of steps involved in server hardening, and we will be discussing the ones which I believe are most applicable to you guys. So let's go on with the first parameter. So when we talk about kernel and OS updates, if you are updating your kernel and OS on a regular basis, you're keeping your system up to date, then you are indirectly um, warding off a large number of security issues. However, the problem with running regular server updates is that sometimes they tend to break stuff, and sometimes it makes many configurations invalid. Thus, some people consider not updating their servers at all. They feel that it will reduce their workload. In a short term, yes, it will reduce your workload, but when you consider the long run, it will not. You really need to keep updating your servers because there are a lot of vulnerabilities which keep coming up every day. In case of kernel updates, actually, you will be required to configure a third-party repository in most operating systems to get the latest kernel version. On managed servers, all of this is taken care of by the hosting provider themselves. Next, we will be talking about SE Linux. So um, when you consider SE Linux, it's like whenever you go online and check for any tutorial to configure any kind of service or something similar, they always tell you to right away. They just tell you disable SE Linux or set it to permissive mode. Now, this can be fine if you're learning something new or it is like only for educational purposes. However, if it is a production environment, especially if you're not using a control panel and it is a custom setup. In such cases, we always recommend please use SE Linux. This is because there are some applications which do cause issues with SE Linux, but most like Apache and all MySQL databases, they work perfectly fine with SE Linux. So there is no real need to disable it. And it will work wonders for you if you know how to set it up properly. And if you don't, it will cause a lot of headaches because it is going to deny you access to a lot of services. So um, in our handout, which has been provided, I have included some of the most common commands which you can use to set up SLNX for your server. However, if you're using a control panel, you really won't need to do this manually because control panels come with their own security mechanisms. Next, we are going to be discussing about securing our access to the server. So by default, all of us, like if you want to connect to the server, we always use SSH. This is like the easiest thing to do. And we connect to SSH over port 22. And all the attackers know that we access over port 22 as well, which is why it becomes a hotspot for brute force attacks. Let's say if you have a server and you just keep using SSH login at port 22. Once you log in after a day or two, you'll always notice a few thousand incorrect login attempts. These are basically brute force attacks on your server that are trying to guess your password. So instead of using the default SSH port, what we would want is to use an alternative port or remove the possibility of a remote login completely and use key-based authentication instead. Now, how to configure key-based authentication, the steps to do that, like how do you generate your private key, public key, all of these details are included in the handout. So you can go through that. That is a very important thing. Just to, it is actually very simple. Change your SSH port, create a custom user, and configure a key-based authentication. So please go ahead and do it if you have not already done it. Next, we will be talking about vulnerability scanners. So these are tools which are used by testers to exploit our own server to make sure that there are no known problems which could be exploited by someone else. So we have a lot in this list. These are not the only ones. I just picked up some random examples right here. Some of these are paid, like for example, Nessus. It provides a really good service, but yes, it is paid. Then there is a Metasploit, which is used by testers to kind of try to exploit their own servers to find out vulnerabilities. We will be focusing on two of such vulnerability scanners in our next slides. So we have Nmap over here. Nmap, because it is firstly it is free and we can use it for pretty much anything because it is possible to create our own scripts with Nmap. So with Nmap, the first sweep of the server that we do is to check for open ports running services, service versions and OS versions. In an ideal situation, after running the scan, we should not be able to figure out what are the service versions or the OS versions that we are using. This information is not supposed to be displayed to any third party which is trying to access your server. Steps on how to configure nmaps, how to configure nmap scripts, and how to use them to sweep your server for any kind of vulnerabilities, any kind of common vulnerabilities and exposures is included in the handout which has been provided. Next, we will be talking about Wireshark. Actually, I believe most or many of you will already be familiar with Wireshark. Even if you have not used it, you will have surely have heard of this previously. So Wireshark by itself is not a vulnerability scanner. However, we can use it as a vulnerability scanner to some capacity. For example, Wireshark can be used to inspect data at a packet level, and we can use it to take a look at each and every packet that is going to and from a server and see what's going on, what types of connections are made, and try to find out anything that looks suspicious. So the benefit of doing that is sometimes there are certain requests or certain traffic which is kind of suspicious, but we just cannot find it in the logs. Wireshark is useful in such instances because Wireshark pulls up traffic from the network interface instead of referring to a service such as Apache. We have like included the command on how you can use TCP dump to generate a .pkf file and export it to Wireshark in the handout. So you can surely refer to that once we are done with the webinar. The next topic which we will be talking about is restricting unauthorized access to your server. So why is this important? Let me give a real life example. Let us say that you spin up a server with any hosting provider across the world. You host your application on that server. As of now, you have not advertised your application to anyone. No one, you have told no one that you have hosted your application on the server. However, you will notice some kind of traffic to your application. So how come I am getting traffic when I have not advertised my website or my application at all? So the reason for that is because this traffic is from automated bots which keep scanning your server for things like open ports, what services you're running, what are the service versions. This is the same thing that we did with Nmap to scan all the open ports, check versions, and try to find out any service that is using an outdated version which contains some kind of vulnerabilities which could be exploited. Thus, we always need to use a firewall to drop packets or traffic on all the unused ports on our system. Next up, sometimes the second real life example which I could give you is after your application is live, you start advertising your website, and your focus audience or your target audience is, let's say, of country A. However, you notice after checking your bandwidth logs that you're getting a lot of traffic from some unrelated country where you have not advertised your website at all. When you try to inspect the traffic, you find out that it looks like there's bots which are making requests to my server. So in such situations, you can blacklist the subnets of such traffic sources in your firewall. The importance of creating a separate blacklist is because when you're moving servers, you can just take the blacklist along with you to the new server, and you won't have to do the entire process again. So blacklist is something that you build up over time. And when it comes to the country level problem, like you do not want people from, let's say, a specific country to visit your site. You're just getting too much traffic from that country which is not intended. Your audience does not exist in that country. So in that case, we have this tool which is ipdeny.com. When you visit this website ipdeny.com, you will find that they offer some files for each and every country. So these files contain the subnets of all the telecom operators that are applicable for that country. So regardless of what type of firewall you are using, if you want to block a country, you just have to import the entire list of IP subnets to your firewall and just block access to the entire country completely. The next part in stopping traffic from bots and stopping scans run by bots is configuring mod security. So mod security is an application which is installed by default in cpanel as well as plesk. If you're not using a control panel, you will need to install it manually, and we have included the steps on how to install mod security in our handout. So it is all detailed explanation on how you can go about installing mod security and how to use it. So mod security by itself will not block bots or block scans for you. What we need with mod security is a rule set which can be imported into mod security, which will block scans for you. So we have the rule set by Open Web Application Security Project, which I personally prefer. Whereas you have other rule set as well, like there is one provided by Sitelock. So in cpanel and plesk, you just have to go to your settings, mod security settings, and in there you just have to install the vendor. You will already have the vendors listed in your control panel. You just have to install it, and that's it. That's all you need to do when it comes to mod security. Um, Next is a mode evasive. Now, mode evasive is actually a Apache module. So what this module does is block or mitigate DDoS attacks on Apache to a certain extent. So let's say if I just install this module and include it into my Apache configuration file. If you're using cpanel plus, you don't need to do this manually. You just install it and it's done. What this module does in its default settings is like, if one IP address makes over 50 requests in 1 second, it will just block the IP completely. It will stop traffic from that IP, and it will also notify you via email that the IP has been banned. So you can tweak the settings, but not actually necessary. With default settings, it works just fine. In the next slide, we will be talking about malware scanners. So why are malware scanners important? When we talk about server security, you can never claim that my server right now is completely secure and there are no possible threats on my server. The best we can do is make things difficult for the attacker, but we can never exactly call that our server is completely secure, which is why we need malware scanners. So right now on our own managed services architecture, we have been using ClamAV and Linux Malware Detect, which is also known as Maldet. And we set up crons with these malware scanners to run regularly, like every day when there is least traffic on the server. This helps detect any kind of malware which could be found if someone has injected a script into a file system. We can find out using malware scanners. However, the most user-friendly malware scanner I would say is Immunify AV. So Immunify 360 is like the premium version. The free one is the Immunify AV. It has plugins for both cPanel and Plesk. You can install it through your control panel directly, and it is very easy to use. It has a very good user interface, and it just takes a lot of time to scan. However, it does run good scans, very easy to use, very easy to install. So yes, if you want a very easy to use malware scanner, go with Immunify AV. You don't even need any experience on command line to use it. Then there is Rootkit Hunter. So Rootkit Hunter used to be very popular in detecting rootkits. Even now it is used on many servers, but it has not been updated since a while now. So I would just ask everyone to look for some alternatives if you could find for detecting rootkits. Next, we have a poll. Which of these security measures do you take on your server? So this is also a multiple choice question. Go ahead and select whatever is applicable to you. Let's wait for about 20 to 30 seconds for responses. So please go ahead and select whatever is applicable. Yeah, just go ahead and select like let's see what we get, what response we get in the poll right now. I am very interested in this one specifically. So in the results, I see that people have really focused on the firewall configuration and backup and recovery. Yes, I do agree. Firewall is important. It is 100% important. And backup and recovery, we just can't stress enough how important backups are. The third one being Apache, PHP, and WordPress application updates. But if I had to rank, like if I had to vote myself, my number one priority would be application updates. But good to see like 71% of people are focusing on that. So let's go to the next slide and continue. So our next slide is much of a text wall kind of slide. I was really considering if we should seriously add this in the presentation. So these are all the options that we have to configure in the Apache configuration file for improving server security. So despite it looks like very confusing, please just bear with me through this one slide. So firstly, like I'll just skim through it very quickly. What are the options available? All of this is included in the handout, so you don't need to remember any of this at all. So firstly, is implementing DDoS protection. These parameters are just some arbitrary values which work well for medium-sized websites, which I have mentioned here. These will change depending on your application and your server configuration. If you have like a 8-core server, 16-core server with let's say 20 GB RAM, then you can just use higher values. No need to stick to 150 max clients. Then comes clickjacking attack protection. So let me just explain what is clickjacking. So let's say you're viewing a website and you go ahead and try to click on a link on a website. However, once you click on the link, suddenly you get a pop-up and you're redirected to some other website. Let's say it's some gambling site, just an example. So why were you redirected suddenly? So what happened is on top of the web content there was a transparent frame. When you clicked on the when you tried clicking on the web content, you actually clicked on the transparent frame which redirected you somewhere else. Avoid such situations from happening on our own web application. We need clickjacking protection. The next important one among the list I would stress is the HTTP request methods. So I've mentioned that apart from post and get, all the other HTTP request methods have to be denied. So the reason is most normal websites only use post and get. You do not need any other HTTP request methods like put, delete, trace. You just do not need them. If you do not need them, let's just disable them. Next one is server side includes. This is to stop anyone and disable following of symlinks. This is to stop anyone from trying to inject content into your website. Then disabling HTTP1. This is a deprecated protocol. No one should be using it right now. Disable HTTP1 and the specify allowed request methods. Both of these actually are placed inside the directory tag in your Apache configuration file. So if you have worked with Apache configuration file, you will know it. But this is just a suggestion, not a necessity or anything like that. The last one, do not volunteer server information. This is the same thing that we have discussed previously. We do not want anyone to find out what OS I'm using. If I'm hosting my application, I don't want anyone to find out that I'm hosting on CentOS 7 or Ubuntu 20. No, I don't want anyone to figure out what OS I'm using, what kernel I'm using, what application version I'm using. No, they will just see that it's an Apache web server. That's it. They should not get anything else. So for this reason, those tags are necessary. Next, we will be talking about Apache and MySQL optimization. So at the beginning of this webinar, I had discussed like how if you just simply move a website to a VPS server, you will not get the intended performance at all. Your website will use only 5 to 10% of the server resources. So what should be done to have your website make the most of the resources which are available? That is what we'll be discussing here. So let me talk about cPanel first. So I personally noticed most of our clients go ahead and get a cPanel license. Like a good choice, nothing wrong with cPanel, but I have a problem with the defaults which are used in cPanel. So when we talk about Apache npm and the PHP handler, so what cPanel uses as defaults is mode prefork. Is the Apache npm used as default in cPanel, and it is the slowest Apache npm you could use. So if you have just moved your site, you will experience slowness, and it is likely due to this Apache npm. So just change it to mode event. How to do so? We have included in the handout. And when it comes to PHP handlers, by default, Plesk and cPanel, both of them use PHP FPM. So nothing wrong with PHP FPM. It is in our recommended, obviously. However, the problem is with the configuration, the default configuration that is set for PHP FPM. So the problem with the default configuration is that the PHP FPM max children parameter is set to 5 in cPanel and 10 in Plesk, and this is by default. So what happens is once those 5 child processes have been spawned, all the new requests that are made to your website just show a timeout error. So it is necessary for us to calculate what is a good value for max children, PHP FPM max children that we could use on our web server to get the most of the available RAM that we have and the CPU cores that we have. There are actually formulas used for calculating this value. This is like a approximate value which you could calculate. I've included the entire what commands to use, what formulas to use, like what is the math used to calculate the PHP FPM max children value in the handout. So the entire process along with an example is detailed in the handout. So please go through that, and this will help you improve your no, not exactly improve, have your web application use all the available resources on the server. Next is MySQL optimization. So to optimize MySQL, either you need a very good database administrator who can straight up go ahead and give you the configuration and like these are the things, add them to your MySQL configuration file, and we are set. Or else the second option that we go with is using MySQL tuner. So this MySQL tuner is actually a third-party script on GitHub. So what this script does is it scans your MySQL usage, like what is the memory used by your databases. It scans all your details and gives you recommendations. So once you have these recommendations, you can go ahead and edit your my.cnf file, the MySQL configuration file, and test your MySQL server. So in this case, actually, I have included a very huge example. There is a big output for MySQL tuner, which has been included in the handout. So do check it out. I have included steps to how you can download the script to your server, how you can run the script, and what exactly to do and make sense of the output which is obtained from the script. So let's go on to the next topic, which is backup configuration. I was actually very happy when people stressed how important backups are for them. Like over 80% voted for backups. And yes, this is very important because I am just stressing this because you never know when you could get caught up in a 0-day vulnerability and when your server could be root compromised. I mean, you could have the best server setup. However, if a 0-day vulnerability comes up and it is found on your server, you can and will get compromised. So in case your server is root compromised, the only solution that we have is to rebuild your server. And if you don't have a backup, we are doomed. Okay, let's be frank about this. If you don't have a backup and your server gets root compromised, we are done for. And then trying to figure out a solution to that, and trying to um, move our application to a new web server and ensuring that there are no backdoors installed in the application is a very difficult task. So please do keep backups. And in cPanel and Plus, you have straightforward options on how to take backups. In WHM, you could simply go ahead and use the backup configuration option. You have backups, which is like you can keep daily, monthly, and weekly backups in cPanel. And in Plesk as well, you can schedule when you want the backups to be taken. So if you do not have a control panel at all, you have a direct application being hosted on the server. So in this case, you can simply create an archive of your application or your important files and download it to your local machine via SFTP. Or else if you have a spare backup server where you store all your backups, then simply just rsync the entire file system to your backup server. That is the best solution that we could take. But always keep local backups. Regardless of the situation, do not forget it, because I have personally noticed many people getting their servers compromised and they do not have a backup, and it's a very sad situation to be in, guys. So please do keep backups, and let's go on with our next topic. Next, we will be talking about server monitoring. So why is server monitoring important? I don't think I need to stress much on this, because we obviously need to know what is going on our servers. But before we actually go into that, let's go through a quick poll once again. So this is a multiple choice poll. What parameters do you think are important to monitor your server's health? You can go ahead and select the options which are applicable to you. I can see some people have tick marked all of them. Yes, that works as well. You can actually tick mark all of them. There is no useless parameter actually listed. All of them are important. Just select which are most important to you as per your opinion. Our results now. So as I expected, most of the people focused on CPU usage and server and database uptime. Nothing wrong with that, important factors. But according to my opinion, okay, it's only my opinion, I would focus more on traffic statistics. I mean, I personally consider it more important to know what is accessing my server, when it is accessing my server, from where the traffic is coming. But yes, nothing wrong with the responses. CPU, RAM, database uptime, all of this is important completely. So let's go on to our next slide. These are some of the server monitoring tools which I've just listed out. Okay, so the selection of these tools was kind of random. So these are not the most popular tools or the most important tools, nothing like that. I've just selected some to be displayed over here. Among these, we personally use Zabbix. So Zabbix is something we personally use. We have a central Zabbix server through which we monitor all the servers on our managed hosting platform. So let's say if you're hosting only one server, you could consider something like a site 24x7. If you have a server cluster, like you have many servers, 5 to 6 servers, then you can consider using a small Zabbix server, wherein through which you could collect information on all of them and monitor everything at one place. So some of these are actually paid, like for example, site 24x7, Pingdom. So these are like paid alternatives. However, Nagio Zabbix is free, open source, so you don't have to pay anything for them. New Relic is mostly used for application to monitor application performance. So if you want to monitor application performance specifically, you could consider New Relic. They have a free plan as well. So what are the services, or what are the key parameters that should be monitored? So we have listed the most important parameters over here which should be monitored, and we are monitoring all of these. So why are these parameters important? Let's just consider DNS service, HTTP and HTTPS, or packet loss or ping. So if you're facing problem with any of these, your clients will not be able to see your website, and that's just a straight out loss of business. If your disk space becomes full, your server will not be able to create temporary files which are required by every application, and your website will not work. If SMTP service is impacted, you will not be able to send emails. FTP service being impacted will stop your web developers from uploading patches and website content. And when we talk about packet loss and ping loss, it's like if you're facing packet loss, then that's a network problem with the data center, and it should be reported to the data center. So that's important as well. And mail queue. Why is mail queue important? Is because we need to monitor the quantity and a type of outgoing mails which are being sent from a server. If suddenly you see a spike in outgoing mails, like 2000 emails sent within an hour, so why should we be paying attention? Is because if in case there is an abusive user on the server, or if there is an abusive script on the server that is sending mails, it will directly impact the IP reputation of your outgoing mail routing IP address. So that, which is why it is important. Next, let me just walk you guys through what exactly is included in the managed services offering that we are providing to our clients. In managed services, we are giving you a very high level of service quality, and we have a very good and experienced technical agents handling your server, and we can provide you customized solutions based on your requirement, which enables you to focus on your business while we manage your server. So our support team will handle each and every single aspect of your server, starting from application setup, security, firewall, monitoring, server maintenance, everything, relieving you of the need to deploy any resources towards any of these tasks. So this is just the last poll before we move on to the Q&A session. Would you be interested in having our server experts manage your server for you? So this is the last poll before we move on to the Q&A session. I will try to answer as many questions as possible. We also have a lot of questions we have some questions which have been previously asked when we send our mailer. So we had received those questions via email, so we will be addressing those as well. Then I'll just go ahead and answer the questions which are mentioned over here. Okay, so I'm closing the poll. Okay, and that's an internal poll. So let's move on to the questions that were asked via email. So these were the ones which were received when we sent mailers about the webinar. There is some problem with screen sharing. Guys, just give me a second. I will just restart this. Okay, so these are the questions that we received via email. So let me just go through those very quickly. Firstly, cheat sheet for commands can be savior used by SSH. Share the cheat sheet so we could manage the server in a better manner. So all of this, all the commands or services that we have discussed, how to set up firewall, how to manage SE Linux, how to take backups, how to optimize the server, how to use MySQL to, all of that is included in the handout. You could refer to that for more information. And if you have any questions, just reach out to our support team. We'll help you out. And the last one was use of web user panel with CentOS. So I actually did go ahead and install the web user panel, which is provided by Softaculous on one of my test VMs on my local machine. And the conclusion I reached is it is good when you consider hosting, like when you're hosting websites for your friends and family. But in a production server, please don't go with this. Not because it is bad, but because I just could not find a good use case for it. I mean, if we are running a production server, I would always recommend cPanel or Plesk. The next question is how to improve time to the first byte on an Apache server. So this is not a one-line answer. In short, um, everything that we discussed in the application, Apache and MySQL optimization slide, the things that are mentioned in the handout as well, all of them will contribute towards improving the TTFB. The second most important parameter in improving it will be your server location and your audience location. So let's say if your server is in India and your audience is in US, that will just not work out, guys. So TTFB, for a good TTFB, ensure that your server is closest to your audience. You can also use a CDN like Cloudflare to get faster content delivery. However, the best solution is to just have your server closest to your audience. The third question, this is actually the last one we got over email. So how to prevent shell script execution and which could not be bypassed by HTXS or any other means. About this question, the thing is, if you want to stop shell script execution, what you need to do is list out PHP functions which are not used by your application and just disable them in your php.ini file, the global PHP configuration file which is available. Disable every PHP function that is not being used by your application. Second, keep your application updated. If you're using WordPress, update plugins, update themes. Do not use cracked or nulled themes or plugins. Just please do not use that, because we had run tests with that. As soon as you use a nulled theme, it automatically injects a code into your application, which injects more code into more files. So please do not do that. Use legit software, and all the points which you have covered in server security will contribute indirectly towards this. Now, the Q&A which is going on over here, let me just check. Most of the questions have been answered. So this is very useful. I suggest to do this kind of webinars. This is from um, Shraddha Kumar. So thanks. We'll surely take your feedback. Now we have SK Sharma, who is asking why cost of servers is double than the market, comparing GoDaddy, MilesWeb, Everdata, E2 Network, etc. For this question, actually, I am from the support team, so I am not exactly aware of the pricing part. However, we'll get back to you over email, and I'll ask one of the account managers to check this out. So don't worry, we'll get back to you after email. So the server backup offering is not there from ResellerClub, and partner have to depend on other vendors for which backup is essential. This is once again from SK Sharma. Okay, this is a very good question, and we did consider that. For our VPS and dedicated servers, we do not have a backup solution. So yes, we will be releasing a backup solution likely within the next month for VPS and dedicated servers, which could be used for taking the backup. So we have not announced it yet, but in the next month, we are introducing a service for like a backup offering. Getting SSL certificate invalid on ipdeny.com. This is by Ronald. Roland, sorry for spelling it out incorrectly. Roland. So ipdeny.com SSL certificate is invalid. You can just visit it. You will see a list of files. We are downloading those files, so we are not sharing our information with the website in any particular manner. So I don't believe that would be as big of a problem. Let me just check next questions that we have. Can we locate our servers at your location? This is by Lewis. I am a bit confused by this question because can we locate our servers at your location? Like we offer our servers are located mostly in US, Texas, and in India location it is in Mumbai, in the uh, Powai data center, which is GPX. So if you have questions regarding a server locations, you can surely reach out to our support team or the account management team. We'll answer all your questions about that. How to optimize MySQL processes? Can you please explain? Let me just check how much time do we have. Okay, we can just go like only a few more minutes left. So how to optimize MySQL processes? Actually, optimizing MySQL processes is dependent on your web developer. The MySQL tuner script, which I recommended, will help you optimize the MySQL server application. So to ensure that your scripts don't hit any bottleneck. So that is the purpose of the MySQL tuner script. So Arun says he's facing WP admin attacks. So when you're using mod security, they will block the WP admin attacks, and we also have some other solutions that could be implemented. We will reach out to you over email. There are a lot more questions. Actually, we are kind of out of time right now. It's already been 1 hour. This was supposed to be a 40 to 45 minutes presentation. Um, I will get back to you guys over mail. So we have more questions over here. There are no servers available for Australia customers. Yes, we will be taking that as a feedback. That question is from SK Sharma once again. Then how to stop outgoing spam? This is from Nimit. Yes, we will reach out to you, Nimit. There's actually a detailed process, and we also have a KB article on our Reseller Club knowledge base on how you can identify and stop outgoing spam, how you can identify what scripts are sending spam. So the last question, this just came. Is from Zahid. There is a Japanese hack attack on Firefox domains on your server. We are in the process to restore hacked keywords in these days. What do you suggest to avoid keyword hack attack? I actually will reach out to you over email. We'll need to check your server before recommending something. I cannot just recommend a random solution before checking out what the situation is exactly. And this one is from Humayun. It's I appreciate sharing your knowledge. How to configure secure email? Most of my clients use cPanel email. Most of the emails are going to spam box. How I can prevent this? This will be actually the last question I attend because we are almost like completely out of time. One solution which I could provide you is go to gmail.com/postmasters and configure a postmaster account. Enter your domain in the postmaster account. It will give you information about your domain reputation, your IP reputation. So once you have these details, you can proceed from then on how to increase your domain reputation. Actually, there is a more in detailed answer, but we are just out of time. So thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for sticking around till the end. I can see a lot of you have, like most of you, almost all of you have actually stuck till the end. I'm just happy to see you guys here. It was a very good and a very good experience presenting this webinar. So see you next time, guys. Jose, I will get back to you over email about your question. We have noted it down. All the questions which I have not answered will be answered over email. So do not worry about it.